Good afternoon. My article this weekend was headlined Streaming Dreams, Non-Linearity, Crude Oil and Netflix. Last week I wrote about the oil markets, and it was this comment by the Houthi spokesman referencing Dubai and Abu Dhabi: if you want peace and security for your facilities and towers made of glass that cannot withstand one drone, then leave Yemen alone, which streamed into my consciousness. And I was thinking to myself about what sort of discount should be applied to the Burj Khalifa, because frankly I place more credibility on the utterances of the Houthis than their adversaries. And then, in some major non-linear jiu-jitsu move, William Golding's 1964 novel The Spire started to spin in my mind. I studied The Spire at A-level, and it made a big impression on me. The Spire is a 1964 novel by the English author William Golding. It is a dark and powerful portrait of one man's will. It deals with the construction of the 404-foot high spire, loosely based on Salisbury Cathedral, the vision of the fictional Dean Jocelyn. In this novel, William Golding utilizes stream of consciousness, writing with an omniscient but increasingly fallible narrator. Dean Jocelyn is the character through which the novel is presented. Golding utilizes the stream of consciousness technique to show his Lear-like descent into madness. The first chapter begins with Jocelyn holding the model of the spire and laughing. He was laughing, chin up and shaking his head. God the Father was exploding in his face with a glory of sunlight through painted glass, a glory that moved with his movements to consume and exalt Abraham and Isaac, and then God again. The tears of laughter in his eyes made additional spokes and wheels and rainbows. Chin up, hands holding the model spire before him, eyes half closed, joy. I've waited half my life for this day. It doesn't quite make sense, or it doesn't make immediate sense. In Golding's opening sentence we read, God the Father was exploding in his face, which is initially as enigmatic as it is dramatic, until it is resolved as a metaphorical description of sunlight streaming through a stained glass window. The delay is important. There is a semantic lag, a slight postponed understanding throughout the spire. And then my mind flipped further back to 2001. You remember those twin statues of the Buddha that I told you about, carved out of a mountain in Afghanistan, that got dynamited by the Taliban back in the spring? Notice anything familiar? Twin Buddhas, twin towers, interesting coincidence, so what? The Trade Center towers were religious too. They stood for what this country worships above everything else, the market, always the holy effing market. Thomas Pynchon, Bleeding Edge. And by the way, my conclusion remains: we are at a peacock throne moment for the House of Saud, and that markets and folks tend to miss inflection points, and therefore I have a supreme conviction around the oil markets, and I am conducting my own operations, and only on a need-to-know basis. The Shah of Shahs ended up in Panama, all on his lonesome, looking out to sea. And there is another fellow, not unlike the fictional Dean Jocelyn, with a $500 million yacht called the Serene, who will most likely be looking out to sea in the not too distant future. I stuck non-linearity in my headline for good reason, and you will need to indulge me. My mind flipped back to an article I read in 2012, Annals of Technology, Streaming Dreams by John Seabrook, January the 16th, 2012, The New Yorker. This world of online video is the future. For an artist, you want to be first in, to be a pioneer. With YouTube, I will have a very small crew, and we're trying to keep focused on a single voice. There aren't any rules, there's just the artist, the content, and the audience. People went from broad to narrow, he said, and we think they will continue to go that way, spend more and more time in the niches, because now the distribution landscape allows for more narrowness. And this brought me to Netflix. Netflix spearheaded a streaming revolution that changed the way we watch TV and films. As cable TV lost subscribers, Netflix gained them, putting it in a category with Facebook, Amazon, and Google as one of the adored US tech stocks that led a historic bull market. This is from the FT. Today, Netflix faces an onslaught of competition in the market it invented. After years of false starts, Apple is planning to launch a streaming service in November, as is Disney with AT&T's Warner Media and Comcast's NBC Universal to follow early next year. Netflix has corrected brutally, and lots of folks are bailing big time, especially after Netflix lost US subscribers in the last quarter. Even after the loss of subscribers in the second quarter, Ben Swinburne, head of media research at Morgan Stanley, says Netflix is still on course for a record year of subscriber additions. Optimists point to the group's global reach. It is betting its future on an expansion outside the US, where it has already attracted 60 million subscribers. And this is an inflection point just like the one I'm signaling in the oil markets. Netflix is not a US business, it is a global business. The majority of analysts are in the US, and in my opinion, these same analysts have an international blind spot. Once investors appreciate the story is an international one and not a US one anymore, we will see the price ramp to fresh all-time highs. I therefore am putting out a conviction buy on Netflix at Friday's closing price of $270.75. We started with the hydrocarbon economy and arrived at the information economy, and therefore allow me to conclude with the digital economy and an excellent report via UNCTAD, which pronounced, the digital economy continues to evolve at breakneck speed, driven by the ability to collect, use, and analyze massive amounts of machine-readable information, digital data, about practically everything. Global Internet Protocol, IP traffic, a proxy for data flows, grew from about 100 gigabytes per day in 1992 to more than 45,000 gigabytes per second in 2017. And yet the world is only in the early days of the data-driven economy. By 2022, global IP traffic is projected to reach 150,700 GB per second, fueled by more and more people coming online for the first time and by the expansion of the Internet of Things. The power of platforms is reflected in the fact that 7 of the world's top 8 companies by market capitalization use platform-based business models. The economic geography of the digital economy does not display a north-south divide. It is consistently being led by one developed and one developing country, the United States and China. For example, these two countries most strikingly account for 90% of the market capitalization value of the world's 70 largest digital platforms. Europe's share is 4%, and Africa and Latin America's together is only 1%. 7 super platforms, Microsoft, Apple, Amazon, Google, Facebook, Tencent, and Alibaba, account for 2/3 of the total market value. And this is the important point. Countries at all levels of development risk becoming mere providers of raw data to those digital platforms while having to pay for the digital intelligence produced with those data by the platform owners. Now, just to finish off, Dubai's main airport was closed on Sunday for 15 minutes on suspected drone activity. This was reported by Emirates. At least 2 flights were diverted to nearby airports in the UAE after Dubai's international closure. This is a photograph of the Dubai Burj Khalifa that I took when I visited. The Spire, there is a link to that as well. Bleeding Edge, which is where I was quoting Thomas Pynchon. That book's major themes were the September 11 attacks in New York City. Mohammad Reza Pahlavi was the Shah of Shahs, until he was overthrown by the Iranian Revolution on 11th February 1979. I watched that revolution unfold on TV as I got to the United Kingdom, to Westminster School in January of that year, which, by the way, was known as the Winter of Discontent. And then the book I was referring to, The Shah of Shahs, is a book by Richard Kapuscinski, and really is a remarkable book. The previous article I was referring to about the oil markets, that is also linked. The article I was referring to in the New Yorker Annals of Technology, Streaming Dreams by John Seabrook, is also linked as well. And then I was talking about Netflix, How Will the Story End, an article in the Financial Times. And I was using the chart by Tavi Costa, who's extremely bearish about that. And the final link is to the Digital Economy Report 2019 by UNCTAD. Thank you for watching.